All right, we are back. We're talking with State Representative Brian Fontenot, District 55 in Thibodaux. Depending where you are in this redistricting, it's a whole nother story. And Mr. State Rep, good to see you.
Hey, Martin, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah. Ooh, depending on who you talk to, I mean, I've been doing this 40 years. It's very confusing at the least, but and whether or not you want to see a minority district or whether or not you want to see different districts in Louisiana, it's still very confusing, but it doesn't trump the fact that we're going to lose somebody who's had a lot of experience in funneling money to us in Garrett Graves.
No, I think you're absolutely right. When you look at the dollars that have come to Lafourche and Terrebonne's coast, both the Port of Terrebonne and the Port of Fouchon, Congressman Graves has been instrumental in the success. When you look at things like deepening the channel in Fouchon, deepening the Houma Navigational Canal, Mid-Barataria Settlement Basin, Morganza to the Gulf, Congressman Graves was the leader in Washington, D.C. that helped recover those funding dollars. So obviously in this redistricting, he was moved into a seat that is a majority-minority seat that I think he will struggle to be successful. It reaches from all the way from East Baton Rouge all the way north into Shreveport into Caddo Parish. So I think it's a struggle. As we move forward, I think you'll see these maps will become challenged as well. But from the standpoint of the court in federal court that said that the legislature had to create 2 minority-majority seats, the legislature did its part in sending a map that was a consensus amongst both the House and Senate that created those 2 seats.
Wasn't that brought up before in previous years, almost the same?
So I think you're probably referring back to 2 years ago is when we first, Judge Shelley Dick said that you have to create 2 majority-minority seats. We went back, were called into a special session by Governor John Bel Edwards. The legislature did not create a map. We said we were unable to create a map that we thought confines to the redistricting laws. And those include things like compactness, communities of interest. This time we came back because she said if we didn't produce a map, that subsequently she would produce that map. So now let's go back a little further. Let's go back all the way into 1994. Then Senator Cleo Fields, who chaired Senate Government Affairs last week, created a map that created 2 minority seats in the state of Louisiana. That map was determined to be racially gerrymandered, that the districts were created merely to suffice race. I think you can see on the screen now what that map looks like. That red district that you see that we know that the Fifth Circuit said was racially gerrymandered looks very, if not extremely similar to the map that this House passed just on Friday. So when you look at those 2 items side by side, you have to believe that someone, whether it be from Congressman Graves' office or someone in the Republican Party, will subsequently file an additional suit and get this new map into the court systems. What's unique about this is that the judge who issued the 1994 opinion that the map was racially gerrymandered still remains on the court today.
Okay. Thibodaux, where you're at. Let's talk about directly how this affects Thibodaux. And second part of that question, we have such a good relationship between Lafourche and Terrebonne, and of course Thibodaux right in Lafourche Parish, of course, but does that change the relationship?
Well, I don't necessarily know if it changed our relationship, Martin, but historically the Bayou Region delegation has always stood together, and we grit a voice when Lafourche and Terrebonne remain together.
One voice
on all different fronts. So what we had before is Congressman Graves in the north and Scalise in the south. Now, the way we've broken this map into 3, in particular just in Thibodaux, we now have Higgins, who comes in and catches all of Terrebonne, some of the northern side of Thibodaux, and then Congressman Scalise would come in just north of Highway 90 in Raceland. So ultimately, Scalise stays the same. But what was disturbing to me, one is this map that was authored was not produced until the day the session began. And very limited amount of time for me to be able to correct what was transpiring in northern Lafourche. Now, geographically, minorities are growing just north of Lafourche Parish. In 3 parishes are some of the largest minority growth communities in the state. They include St. Charles, St. John the Baptist, and St. James. So when we as a legislature is forced to create a district that has more minority population, naturally Lafourche gets looked at to increase that minority population. So what we call is BVAP, is Black Voting Age Population. The total BVAP in the map that was passed, 1.8% of the minorities in that map come out of the city of Thibodaux. Now, I don't believe, again, that that meets the confines of redistricting. Clearly, Thibodaux doesn't have a community of interest with the lower Ninth Ward in New Orleans. So I offered an amendment to correct that. And that amendment only changed Lafourche Parish. I think the amendment's up now. My amendment, as you can see it, would keep all of the city of Thibodaux in Congressman Higgins' district and would extend Scalise all the way through Chack Bay, Choctaw, and Bayou Buff. I balanced the minorities by coming through Raceland and DeSalmons and picking up minorities that are in Raceland.
So you're not opposed to the minority districts. You just want to make sure that the interest is funneled to where the interest would be best served.
Well, again, you're talking about a city in Thibodaux, and I promise you, you can search any other city in the state of Louisiana and you will not find this. The city of Thibodaux, who has a 14,000 population, has 4 state senators and now 3 congressmen. That's just unacceptable. It's absolutely unacceptable. Yeah. So to keep Thibodaux together, we were going to try to move the minorities from Raceland and continue to have the balance that was needed by the court. I was told that we could put that amendment on when the bill got into conference. Unfortunately, the Senate approved the amendments, and this bill never made it to conference, and my amendment died and never got on to the bill.
All right, hold that thought. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates, for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights. All right, we are back with State Representative Brian Fontenot. And boy, this is a quagmire because I don't care who you talk to, when you're talking about redistricting, it's always going to come down to, are the different ethnic backgrounds getting fair representation in wherever the districts are. But normally, correct me if I'm wrong, it normally goes to the senator or the one who's in charge of that area. They have a lot of input into all of this. So if there's a black majority district, you're going to go to the senator there and go, okay, wait, help us out. Did that happen here?
Yeah. So if you look at our state senators, you know that Senator Ed Price, which has St. James and some of Ascension, that is listed as a minority majority state Senate seat. Mm-hmm. When you look at the small portion of Lafourche that was put into a minority congressional seat, you will see that it's the exact same footprint as Senator Ed Price. So I think when you're looking for the numbers to create a majority minority seat, you look where those minorities currently serve at in this state. Mm-hmm. I think that's how Thibodaux pops out on the map. In addition, you look at Assumption, St. James, St. John, St. Charles, even Iberville. Those have growing populations of African Americans. Those is where that is rising. Some of that is due to Katrina. I think some of that is due to crime that's occurring in New Orleans. These people are leaving and they're working. They got good jobs along the plant in the river. Mm-hmm. So the minority numbers are rising just to our north. Again, I think there's a fix. And let me say this. You can redistrict anytime. You can change precincts at any time. There is nothing that bounds the confines of the Constitution that says you must only do it every 10 years. So first and foremost, I believe that the map is unconstitutional. I think it's racially gerrymandered. If that map was to stand constitutional muster, then I will come back in the next year or so and do exactly as I explained. I will take the city of Thibodeau and move them completely into Congressman Higgins's district and take the minority numbers that would keep the VBAP balance and move that into Raceland. And again, you see it here in the graphic. The blue would be considered minority representation. And the bulk, just give you an example. In Thibodeau, I think it took 18 to 19 precincts to equal the same amount of minorities that in Raceland only takes 3 precincts.
Right.
So I think it's the obvious common sense thing to do. I don't like that as well.
But didn't you have a map that didn't make it because some logistical moves that were made?
Right. So that was the amendment I think we just saw up on the screen that shows that small blue finger coming into Lafourche Parish is coming in from St. Charles, and that's what takes on race. And again,
Can't read that from it. Is it Hollydore? Where is that?
well, it encompasses what would be on the, I guess, the western side of Bayou Lafourche, some of Allydore, and in between the bridges in Raceland.
Okay.
And again, those 3 precincts had the same amount of minorities as the 15 precincts that we absorbed in Thibodeau. Some of the precincts absorbed into a minority seat in Thibodeau could be 95+% whites, places like Highland Lakes. But in order to get to the minorities on the eastern side of Thibodeau, you had to include them into that minority seat. So again, I really believe shortly, in the next 7 to 10 days, you will see a suit filed based on racial gerrymandering. And when you look at the map in 1994 that the Fifth Circuit Federal Court said was unconstitutional, you can look at the map that's currently passed and say they nearly look exactly the same.
This is interesting. So, 'cause then in 94, didn't they say it was racially gerrymandered?
Again,
Yeah.
the judge that said in 1994 is racially gerrymandered still serves on the court today. You've got to believe that what he wrote in 1994 will continue to stand as racial gerrymandering. Look, this legislative body has now said for 3 years, we do not believe that we can create a map with 2 minority-majority seats that follow all of the confines of the law. If all the minorities in the state of Louisiana lived in New Orleans and East Baton Rouge, I think that's a valid point. But we know by looking at this map, to balance their numbers, they have to come into places like Lafourche Parish. We even saw an amendment that we took off that took in all of Gibson and Bayou Black and minorities in Terrebonne Parish. That amendment ultimately was removed. But when you have to create these small fingers of communities in these maps to get to the numbers of minorities to meet what the federal judge said, I think it clearly shows that this is a racially gerrymandered map.
Yeah, this is always an interesting topic. And you see both sides. The NAACP fought so hard to get these heard. And of course, the 2 districts are a win for them. But if, and we have about a minute left, if somebody files a suit, it puts the new governor in a situation where he's going to be playing with the same thing that the former governor played with for a long time.
He will. And, the new attorney general, because we passed his map, she's forced to defend these maps. So now we will use state dollars to defend a map that looks clearly like one that was overturned in 1994. I'm not quite sure what was the next step for us. I wasn't involved in those high-level conversations with the governor and the author of this map. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at these 2 maps and see that what was overturned in 1994 looks very similar to what we passed on Friday.
We'll keep watching, and you're always invited to come on and give us your opinion. We appreciate you coming on, and good luck. We're going to keep a close eye on the redistricting.
I appreciate you, Martin. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there you have it. Once again, Brian Fontenot, District 55. We will continue to follow this. This has always been a big topic, and we want to be fair. Both sides, everyone's invited to talk about it. Come on over. We'll give you a seat. We'll be right back.